Today, we're exploring a powerful message from Pastor Cy Lynch called Rooting Out Lies, Justice, American Exceptionalism, and True Worship. What are the lies we hold on to, whether as individuals or as a nation, that keep us from real growth, real justice, and true worship? This isn't about tearing down, it's about building something better, by rooting out what's false and making space for what's faithful. Let's dive in.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a question that's both ancient and really urgent. What lies do we sometimes cling to, individually or maybe even as a nation, that kind of hold us back from real growth and justice?
That's the core of it.
Yeah, so we're diving into this powerful sermon, Rooting Out Lies, Justice, American Exceptionalism, and True Worship, our mission. To unpack its wisdom, maybe find some surprising truths relevant for you today.
And it takes us right into the book of Jeremiah. It's a text, it's steeped in trauma, truth, and ultimately transformation.
Right.
You have to imagine the scene. Constant wars, invasions, people forced into exile, and then the ultimate catastrophe, the destruction of Jerusalem and its incredible temple.
Wow.
So the big question the sermon explores and what we'll be wrestling with is basically what needs tearing down inside us, around us, to actually make space for, new growth and truth.
Jeremiah's message sounds pretty blunt. Root out the lie. For people back then, identifying their big lie must have been, incredibly difficult, right? What was he actually fighting against?
He was directly confronting this deeply ingrained belief they had, the idea that the temple and the city of Jerusalem itself were just impenetrable, indestructible.
Okay. Why do they believe that so strongly?
Well, their theology, their reasoning was, God lives in the temple. The temple's in Jerusalem. Therefore,
The city's safe, untouchable.
exactly, no matter what. And this wasn't just wishful thinking. It felt proven by history. About 100 years earlier, the Assyrians, a huge empire, they'd invaded the northern kingdom of Israel and completely wiped them out. But when they came south and besieged Jerusalem, Judah miraculously survived.
Okay. So that event would have absolutely solidified it for them.
Totally. It became their proof. See? We are indestructible.
And yet here comes Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, with this just stark, incredibly unpopular message. He's telling them, despite everything you believe, despite that history, the entire land will be decimated, people taken captive, and the temple itself gone.
Yeah, the very thing they thought guaranteed their safety. He even mentions them chanting, like, this is the Lord's temple. This is the Lord's temple.
Like a magic phrase or something.
Kind of, yeah. Like a rote saying, totally empty of real meaning or faith. It was like a security blanket that was actually blinding them.
So, okay, if that's the ancient lie, this idea of an impenetrable city, a guaranteed safety net,
Right.
what's our modern version? What's our security blanket today?
Well, this is where the sermon really pivots.
Right. It brings us to this concept of American exceptionalism, doesn't it?
It does. This idea that our nation is somehow uniquely special. Maybe even chosen. And maybe, just maybe, exempt from the rules that apply to others.
Okay, and the source material is careful here, right?
Yeah.
It's not about hating America.
Absolutely not. Pastor Lynch makes that really clear. And, personally, with my background in the Army, working in the legal system, I have a deep love for this country. The critical point, the distinction is this. Being a Christian and being a patriotic American, they aren't the same thing. And they aren't mutually exclusive either.
Okay.
The danger, the lie, comes in when that sense of exceptionalism morphs into believing America is God's new chosen people, incapable of serious wrong and therefore may be immune to consequences.
So it's nuanced then. This idea isn't entirely bad. Are there aspects of American exceptionalism that have been, genuinely positive?
Oh, certainly. I mean, historically, America was one of the first big experiments with a citizen-led democracy in the modern world. That was radical. And especially since World War II, it's played a huge role, arguably, in protecting democracy, promoting certain moral values globally. But
There's always a but.
There's always a but. We have to face the challenging parts of our history, too. Most Americans, unless you're indigenous, are descendants of immigrants. We have to acknowledge the genocide against native populations. We have to acknowledge the horrors of slavery, the forced importation of people from Africa.
And other countries have dark histories, too, of course. But these are our specific challenges.
Exactly. They remain a difficult, undeniable part of the American story that we can't just ignore or forget.
And that connects to what you were saying about the danger of, rewriting history, doesn't it? Trying to pretend those flaws aren't there.
Precisely.
It's almost like personal accountability. An individual can admit they messed up, they have flaws, without saying, I am a terrible person.
Good analogy.
So a nation should be able to say, we got things wrong, we have imperfections, we're still working on it, without it meaning the whole project is worthless or evil.
Right. It doesn't mean perfection. It certainly doesn't mean indestructibility. It's about acknowledging the ongoing work.
Okay.
And just one more distinction on this, just like being Christian isn't the same as being American. It's also not the same as being Republican or Democrat or any other political label. Faith should transcend those categories.
That's a really important point. Okay, so if step one is rooting out these lies, the lie of the impenetrable temple or the lie of a nation that can do no fundamental wrong, what's step two? What does God actually want instead? What's true worship look like?
Well, Jeremiah tackled that head on. He basically called out superficial worship.
Oh.
He described people living corruptly all week, lying, cheating, exploiting others, and then showing up at the temple on the Sabbath, acting pious. He called the temple a hiding place for criminals.
Wow. Strong words.
Very strong. His whole point, his call, was for a reform of our ways and our actions. It wasn't about where you showed up on Sunday. It was about how you lived Monday through Saturday.
And what does that reform actually entail? What are the ways and actions that need changing?
The text is specific. It means treating each other justly. It means promoting positive human relationships. And it specifically calls out stopping the exploitation of the most vulnerable,
Which back then were.
the immigrant, the orphan, and the widow. Those were the classic examples of vulnerable groups in that society. And sadly, often still are today in different forms.
Yeah.
And the sermon really digs into this fascinating link between worship and service. Did you know the same words in Hebrew and Greek can often mean both?
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Think about the Apostle Paul saying we should offer our bodies as a living sacrifice. He calls that our true and proper worship.
So worship isn't just singing songs or praying in a building.
Not solely, no, it's lived out. And Psalm 82, which the sermon highlights, is incredibly direct. It says, defend the weak, the fatherless, the poor, the oppressed, rescue them, deliver them from the wicked.
And how is wicked defined there?
It's defined specifically as those who exercise power oppressively. So the ultimate, purest expression of true worship, according to this interpretation, it boils down to justice.
Justice. Okay. And the sermon defines that as?
As facilitating positive human relationships.
Facilitating positive human relationships. That's clear. But I have to say, while the definition is clear, actually living that out.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to say justice.
Yeah. It's profoundly hard to embody it, isn't it? Both for us as individuals and, well, thinking about it as a nation.
Incredibly challenging, but perhaps understanding it collectively gets us closer to what God intends by it.
Okay, so this brings us to the big so what, doesn't it? How do these ancient ideas about justice, about rooting out lies, how does that apply to us, as Americans living today?
Well, we can start right with the Bible itself. Leviticus has this incredibly powerful command. It says, any immigrant who lives with you must be treated as if they were one of your own citizens.
Wow. Treat them as citizens.
Yes, and it goes on, love them as yourself because you were immigrants. That speaks so directly to our reality today, doesn't it? Thinking about immigrants, including, yes, undocumented folks who often arrive starting with nothing and working hard.
That Leviticus quote is striking. And speaking of powerful symbols and aspirations, this makes me think about the Statue of Liberty.
Ah, yes, a potent symbol.
We all know the poem, right? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses.
It's the new Colossus, yeah. A beautiful message of welcome. But there's a layer to the statue that's, well, often overlooked.
What's that?
At her feet. Lady Liberty has broken shackles at her feet.
Really? I never knew that.
Most people don't. And originally, the sculptor intended for her to hold chains in her hand, not the tablet she holds now.
So what do the shackles represent?
Freedom from slavery. The statue, yes, it was a gift marking Franco-American friendship, but a huge part of its intended meaning, especially for the French abolitionists involved, was celebrating the emancipation of enslaved people in America. It connects directly to Juneteenth.
That's fascinating. So the welcome to immigrants part came later.
Well, the poem by Emma Lazarus, a Russian Jewish woman passionate about helping immigrants, was added later and became incredibly famous, broadening the statue's symbolism. But the original intent was very much about liberation within America.
So it represents both. Liberation for Black and Indigenous people and open arms to immigrants.
Exactly. It holds both those powerful meanings, liberty and welcome.
It's striking, too, how our own foundational documents echo some of these themes of biblical justice, even with all their historical complexities.
How so?
Well, think about the Declaration of Independence. All persons are created equal, with rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Now, we know historically all persons didn't mean everyone at the time it was written.
Right, a huge gap between aspiration and reality then.
Exactly. But the aspiration itself is still there, isn't it? It points towards that idea of inherent worth and dignity, and the Pledge of Allegiance, too. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Another profoundly aspirational statement.
Yeah. It feels like it aligns with those core ideas. Love your neighbor, do unto others, even if we constantly fall short.
And that's the key point, isn't it? We do continuously fall short, as individuals and as a nation. But remember, Psalm 82, it characterizes divinity, true godliness, as protecting and providing for the most vulnerable.
Which, in a word,
Yep.
is justice.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground today, from Jeremiah's ancient call to root out those dangerous lies, to thinking about what that means for American identity today and this deep connection between genuine justice and what it means to truly worship.
It really ties individual and national accountability together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It reframes worship not just as a Sunday activity, but as a way of life centered on justice.
So as we wrap up, here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Consider this. What if acknowledging our nation's flaws, embracing the full story, the difficult parts, the nuances, like with the Statue of Liberty, what if it isn't weakness?
What if it's actually the path? Exactly. The path to a more honest, a deeper understanding of who we are, what we aspire to be, and what belonging truly means. So the question for you is, what does it mean for you personally to root out the lie in your own understanding of history and your place in it all?